Hi, everybody. After I told my story about being the outcast, a lot of folks asked to hear more about how my sister got me off drugs. It's not a pleasant story, but I hope somebody can benefit from hearing it. I am going to present it in all its ugliness, in all its foolishness, and I may stumble over some words or something like that. I may get a little choked up, but I'm not going to edit anything out. I'm just going to go through it the way it is, tell it the way it was, and you be the judge. So here it is, story time, The Drug Addict. I've never been known for doing things the usual way, and it was no different when it came to childhood diseases. I got the measles at 16, had my tonsils out at 17, and got the mumps at 18 just before I went into the Army. I've told that story elsewhere. Today, I'm focusing on the tonsillectomy at 17 because it led to one of the worst periods of my life. Before the surgery, a nurse gave me a yellow capsule that I recognized. It was a barbiturate called Nembutal. My mother and two of my sisters used it consistently as a sleep aid. I knew that on the street they were known as yellows and people bought and sold them. That was the extent of my knowledge until I took the capsule as ordered. My world changed. Once I recovered from the surgery, I wanted to feel like that pill had made me feel again. I wanted to feel like that all the time. One day, I stole one of my mother's sleeping pills, and there it was. I'd been beaten down, put down, rejected, and ignored all my life. With this stuff on board, none of that mattered. I went to my doctor and told him I couldn't sleep. He immediately wrote me a prescription. Basically, he handed them out like candy. Now I could feel great 24/7. For a while. After a few months, it just wasn't the same. I wasn't getting that high that was so great from a Nembutal anymore. The solution? Take two. And there it was again. All was well. For a few months. During this time, I'd help babysit my sister's kids while she and her husband worked. She would also hire some of her friends' daughters, both to help out these young teenage girls and to have someone to help me. There was one girl in particular. She was 13 and we got to be good friends. Then one day she asked to try one of my pills. I need to pause here and insert some more information. She had a sister who was 17, rather attractive, and how can I put this delicately? She would sleep with anything that moved, and if it didn't move, she'd sleep with it to find out why. She came over a couple of times and made plays for me, but I wasn't interested. For one thing, by this time I was over 18, so if we got caught, I would go to jail. Anyway, younger sister asked to try a pill and I gave it to her. She tucked it away and said she'd try it later. It got to be a regular thing. Every couple of days she'd ask for one or two and I'd give them to her. I assumed she was just having fun. What I didn't know was she was giving them to older sister and older sister was selling them at school. If she got busted, that meant I was a supplier to a pusher. I don't know how many years that would have got me because I don't think I can count that high. Then came the morning I got a call from my sister. I can still hear her voice when she said, "Younger sister tried to kill herself with your pills." She was wrong. It was older sister. She decided her parents were horrible, so she was going to get revenge on them by dying. And she'd been keeping some of the pills for herself all this time, hoarding them until she thought she had enough. Thankfully, her parents found her and got her to the hospital on time. Her mother wasn't sure what to do about me. She didn't want to send me to jail because my sister was her friend. She basically wanted the police to come over and scare me to death, but they couldn't legally do that. They didn't need to. My sister did a better job than they ever could. There were no more babysitters besides me after that. I did a good job. I loved the kids and they enjoyed me. By this time I was taking 4 pills at a time and that was starting to lose its effectiveness. When I wasn't watching the kids, I was spending time with one or the other of my 2 nephews that I grew up with. We'd go cruising, go play pinball machines, or just go to a restaurant and hang out and drink coffee. One night I was driving and the younger nephew was with me. He decided he wanted to get high, so he asked about my pills. The bottle was sitting there on the seat. He said, "How many of these do you take?" I said, "I take 5, but..." Before I could finish, he dumped 5 of them into his hand and gulped them down. Within an hour, I wondered if I was going to have to take him to the hospital. He was sick. He kept trying not to vomit while at the same time he couldn't stay awake. I drove around for the next 2 hours, occasionally shaking him and making sure he stayed awake until that stuff wore off. When it finally did and he was coherent again, he asked me what happened. I told him I take 5 at a time because I've been on this stuff for over a year. 1 was plenty for him. He said, no, none is plenty for me and for you too. You need to get off this stuff. I tried. I couldn't. I was a full-blown addict. My doctor wouldn't give me as many as I needed, so I started stealing them from my sisters and my mother. One day, my sister had just gotten a new bottle, 30 beautiful capsules, and I couldn't resist. When she wasn't looking, they went into my pocket and the empty bottle went back in her purse. 2 days later, she was looking in her purse and gasped, "My sleeping pills are gone." I jumped up and ran over and said, "What? Did the bottle come open?" But there were none in the bottom of her purse. What could have happened to them? Within a couple of months, she had figured it out. She knew I'd been doing drugs, but she didn't realize how bad it was, and she wasn't sure what to do about it. Then one day, I went over to watch the kids as usual. I had 5 Nembutal on board, and I'd taken them on an empty stomach. I was walking about 9 inches above the floor. I don't remember much about that day because I fell asleep. So since I was sleeping, the oldest of the kids, who was about 10, decided to make supper. She started to slice a tomato and sliced her finger instead. It was a deep cut and it was bleeding profusely. And they couldn't wake me. The drug had me in such a deep sleep, they couldn't bring me out of it. I don't know what might have happened if my sister hadn't come home just minutes after it occurred, and you can bet she woke me up. Once the medical emergency was taken care of, we sat down to talk. She asked how long this had been going on. I explained that I'd been on it ever since the surgery, which was almost 2 years now. I told her everything. She held out her hand. I surrendered the bottle without argument. I was so ashamed of myself I was almost suicidal for a few moments. She counted the pills in the bottle and said, "Tomorrow and for a few days after that, you get 4, then 3. We're getting you off this stuff." It didn't take that long. The knife that went through my heart when I saw that precious child injured and terrified because I failed was the final straw. I said, "No, keep them. I'm done." She said, "This won't be easy. You're addicted." I said, "I know. And whatever comes, I deserve it." Over the next couple of weeks, my resolve didn't hold as strong as I'd hoped, and a couple of times I got 1 or 2 from her. As she said, it wasn't easy, but she was there for me. She held me while I was shaking. She let me bury my face in her shoulder and scream whatever it took. I can't describe the temptation during that time, especially when I knew the pills were just a few feet away and there was no way she could stop me if I made a run for them. But I kept seeing my niece's bloody hand and her terrified face, and I'd bury my face in my sister's shoulder or lap and scream some more. No matter how loud the pills called, my screams could drown them out. And if that was what it took, that was what it took. Finally, that great day came when she offered me one, and I said, "No thanks, I'm fine." The weight was off. I was free. I haven't gone near any barbiturates since. My sister's name was Carol. We lost her to fucking cancer in 2008. But what she did for me lives on. Addiction of various types is a huge problem in this country. If you know someone who's addicted to something and you care about them, offer to be their Carol. That person who will hold them, cry with them, stand with them with no judgment or condemnation, just unconditional love and support. I won't feed your addiction, but I will hold you while you get off of it. Every addicted person needs someone like that. Every addicted person needs a Carol. If you get the chance, be Carol for someone. Thanks for watching.